Hey guys, we're the Cute and Clever Data Dudes, and for our final project, we analyzed data about Airbnbs in the Los Angeles area. I'm Trey Robinson.
I'm Gunnar Carlson.
I'm Alex Carlson.
And Alex Nikolak is here.
And this is our project.
The main business question that we chose to explore was whether it's a viable decision or not to invest in a temporary rental property in Los Angeles, and if so, what kind of property and in what area should the property be purchased?
In order to gain more insight on our business question, these are the questions we asked ourselves. Please take a moment of your time to pause the video as you please.
The first question that we asked ourselves is, does proximity to the coast affect the price of the rental? Based on our analysis, we concluded that the proximity to the coast does in fact affect the price of the property. This is the visualization that we chose to focus on for this business question. Since these variables came into us as latitude and longitude, as you can see, we weren't able to actually run a regression with these variables. So the best way to analyze this question was to actually map it out on a grid like we did. And as you can see, the yellow points are the more expensive ones, where the purple ones are the cheaper properties. And the yellow properties are all along the coast and in the Hollywood Hills, which we will discuss later, which turned out to be more of our expensive properties.
The next question that we wanted to ask ourselves was whether or not the neighborhood affected the price. The conclusion that we came to was that the neighborhood did affect the price. Depending upon what neighborhood it is, affects how cheap or expensive the property will be. This is our Tableau visualization for the neighborhoods and price. If you take a look at the scale, the darker ones, the red ones are the larger prices on average, and the bluer ones are the ones that are cheaper on average. If you kind of click around and look at the individual neighborhoods, for example, Malibu, the average price there is $383 per rental. Relative to the rest of the neighborhoods, it's about in the middle, kind of more expensive. But then there's cheaper neighborhoods like Inglewood, Palmdale. Those neighborhoods tend to have cheaper prices for rentals. Taking a look more at the Hollywood Hills West or Hollywood Hills or just Hollywood in general, those are expensive areas, along with the Pacific Palisades. They all tend to have higher average prices than others.
Our next question is, does the host name affect the rental type? And with a large amount of hosts we had, we were not able to run a regression, but we made a Tableau visualization that was very useful.
So for this visualization, we broke up the host names by room type. And so over on the entire home category, you can see that our biggest competitors would be Doing Right Rentals and Zeus. So the bigger the bubble basically shows the more that they have more listings, and then the color is correlated to the price. So the blues and purples are lower prices, the yellows are mid-range prices, and red would be the most expensive. In room type, you can see that Ivan and Larissa would be our biggest competitor, and then in shared room, it's kind of even across the board. One reason that we thought this would be important for us to look at is we can see which markets already have major competitors and which would have more room for us to come in and be able to take over. For our next analysis question, we asked, does the neighborhood affect the availability of the property? After running our regressions and everything, we found out that it does, in fact, affect the availability. One reason we wanted to look at this was to decide if there are certain areas that we should go after that people are more likely to rent from us.
For our visualization on the average availability by neighborhood, we chose to sort it by the average availability by each neighborhood, starting with the lowest availability per neighborhood. Since we didn't have a rating variable for each listing, this was what we thought would be the best indicator of which neighborhoods were the most popular. So from this, we've decided that if we are going to invest in a property, we will want to look at these first few records that show up in this visualization.
Our next question is, does the type of room affect the availability? And from our Tableau visualization, we found that the average availability is the same for all room types. but the tableau visualization shows more in-depth insight. In this visualization, we are trying to find the room type that had the lowest availability, which means that it gets booked more often, and the highest minimum nights because you get more money, you get a bigger bang for your buck. And you can see that the worst option would be the shared room, because we want to focus on the entire home and private rooms because the availability is the lowest and the average nights is much higher than the shared rooms, meaning that there is more room for profit from larger rental stays and more nights that our property would be rented out for.
For our next analysis question, we asked, does the number of reviews affect the availability? And we found out that it does not. One thing that we think is that this could mean that people are not leaving reviews, but the location and price of the property is still in high demand for the market. And our Tableau visualizations go over this a little more in depth.
Looking at the Tableau visualization for the availability by number of reviews, you can see that as the number of reviews goes up, the availability doesn't really change. It goes up a little bit and then goes down, goes back up, and then goes way up at the end, meaning that there's really nothing no correlation between the two variables. Like Trey had mentioned, we speculate that it's because people aren't leaving reviews, or maybe they are, but they're poor reviews or they're good reviews. It's just a mix of everything. So there's really no way to tell why this could be taking place.
After all of our findings, we've decided that it would be best to go after a property that's in a coastal area due to the fact that it has a decent market price that's not too high or too low, and it also has it's very sought after by our target audience. One aspect to look at is depending on which market segment we're trying to go after would depend on whether or not we would want to own an entire home or just a shared room.
Thank you guys for listening to this presentation. I'm Alex Nikolakis.
I'm Alex Carlson.
I'm Gunnar Carlson.
I'm Trey Robinson.
We're the Cute and Clever Data Dudes signing off.